What's up guys, welcome back to Unlimited Reads. My name is Chris and today I'll be doing my reading wrap up for January, and please stick around because as per usual I'll be revealing my book of the month. Now January was a bit of a funny month. It started off really well and then things didn't go really well by the time the middle of the month rocked around, but for the rest of the month everything went well and I was really pleased with what I read for the remaining 2 weeks. I had an absolute blast. The only negative thing to come out of January was I was involved in a read-along for The Count of Monte Cristo with a few other booktubers, including Sean D. Standfast, Nathan the Rambling Reviewer, and Scott from the Bookish Bryants. I was excited from the outset and was really looking forward to it. Got stuck into the book and it started off really well. I read the Robin Buss translation, which is a behemoth of a book of about 1,200 pages. It was a really big ask. And as I said, it started off really well, and by the time I got to the 60% mark, things started to change a little bit. Things appeared to be dragging, things weren't really going anywhere. I know that a lot of the book is about all the setup for Dante's revenge. I particularly enjoyed the betrayal and the escape from the prison, but you know, I was pretty impressed with how Dante's became the Count of Monte Cristo, but at the 60% mark, I am embarrassed to say I gave up. So it is my first DNF for the year. You know, I got impatient. I wanted to find out what the revenge was going to be, and it's not the book's fault, it's my fault because I'm not widely read in Victorian classics. I have started reading classics, but more so the modern ones from the 1960s and thereafter, and some a little bit earlier. But I grew impatient because I just wanted to get to the crux of the matter and find out what Dante's was going to do in order to get his revenge. Just in retrospect, and they say hindsight is 20/20, I should have, instead of trying to tackle the Robin Buss translation, the Penguin Black version, I should have started with an abridged version. Then at least I would be able to say I've read The Count of Monte Cristo, I know what's going on, and then I could have gone back to the Robin Buss version years later if I wanted to, because at the moment I don't think I have a profound appreciation for Victorian literature. That's just me. I'm not going to hang it on the book. I'm not going to be derogatory towards the book in any way. It just didn't work for me, that particular translation. But I did manage to get my hands on an abridged version, so I'm going to redeem myself somewhat in the coming months, and come hell or high water, I will finish the abridged version this year. And then, you know, when I'm old and crusty and in my wingback leather chair with my smoking jacket and pipe and slippers, I might by that stage have developed an appreciation for Victorian classics. Now, if you want to talk about Victorian classics, and in particular science fiction, the man to speak to or to watch on his YouTube channel is Sean D. Standfast. During the month of January, when I was reading The Count of Monte Cristo, he was a really good sounding board for me because I shared what I was going through with the book, how I was feeling about the book, and he has such sage advice, and he's a voice of reason, and he in particular enjoys the Victorian classics, and he read The Count of Monte Cristo pretty quickly, and now he's moving on to Les Miserables, which he's very excited about. Now his channel is so good. I've left a link to the channel in the comments below so that you can check him out. But yeah, in the end guys, I just had, you know, I've got a lot to read this year, and it was my own impatience that brought me undone. I was just too eager to get to the revenge parts, and rather than skim through the book and not do it any justice, I thought, look, I'm going to shelve it, and I will finish the abridged version this year. I've promised myself that, and we'll see how we go. But yeah, I feel better now that I've got that out in the open and aired my dirty laundry. I feel a bit better about getting that off my chest. So yeah, and then you know, it took me a little while to move on after putting it down. I did make a false promise to myself that look, I'll just stop at the 60% mark, I'll read something else and come back to it. Didn't end up going back to it, and then read something else, and in the end I thought, look, I'm just going to leave it and I'll come back to it later. Alright, so now for some positive stuff. The next book I read was Killing Floor by Lee Child, the very first Jack Reacher book, which was fantastic. This is part of the Jack Reacher rereading project that I'm embarking on this year. So excited to be doing it. I really enjoyed reading this for the second time. It has been a long time since I read it. I'm pleased to say that season 1 of the Amazon show was very, very true to the book. It had a really good, fascinating mystery that Jack Reacher solved with the help of Roscoe. And there was plenty of action in it, and it was a really, really good read. And I'm so looking forward to the next book in the project, which will be Die Trying, which is slated for this month in Feb to read that. So I'm really looking forward to the project continuing. If you haven't checked out the first project video, it's on the channel there. By all means, check it out, where I review the book in a little bit of detail and share my thoughts and reactions, spoiler free as always. But yeah, really enjoyed that one again. I also read Run by Blake Crouch. That was recommended to me, not personally, but Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews raved about the book, and I responded to his video with a comment saying, geez, I might have to just squeeze this in for the month of January, and he came back and said, you should. So I did, and I don't regret it, because I have read a few of Blake Crouch's books now. I love the Wayward Pines trilogy. I love Dark Matter, Recursion, and Upgrade. They are all fantastic books. This one's no different. It was a thrill ride from start to finish. It was about a family's ordeal, how society has broken down. Some mysterious occurrence happens where people become influenced by that and turn into murderers. And over ham radio, people's names are announced who need to be killed. And Jack's family, unfortunately, is targeted, and they go on the run, and they have to overcome so many insurmountable obstacles. It is just nail-biting stuff. I read it in no time flat. I'm glad I read it, because you know, Blake Crouch's books are always accessible. They're very easy to digest, very easy to get through. They're very cinematic, they're very character driven, and the kids in the story do really well. But I have reviewed that on the channel as well. If you haven't caught that video, please look at it. And there are going to be a lot of review videos on the channel this year, guys, because I feel I need to share what I'm reading so that I can create some awareness and some excitement about what books are out there. I'm pretty much going to be reviewing 90% of what I read this year. So Run was an absolutely fantastic book. Really enjoyed it. Really looking forward to reading a lot more of Blake Crouch's work in the future. Alright, the next one I read was Headhunters by Mark Dawson, the 7th book in the John Milton thriller series. I hadn't read a John Milton book since early last year, so it was a fair break between books, but I'm so glad I got back into the series. Particularly, this one was a sequel to Salvation Row, the last book I read in the series that I reviewed on the channel, which was fantastic, and this one, being a direct sequel, was equally as good. It was the return of Avi Bachman, John Milton's nemesis from the last book, where Bachman has some unfinished business with Milton and they go toe-to-toe, which again, I've reviewed Headhunters on the channel, so if you haven't caught that one, have a look at that, and I go into a bit of detail as per usual, and more importantly, spoiler free. So if you're thinking of picking up the John Milton series, I thoroughly recommend you do. Okay, so let's talk about the book of the month, and there can only be one winner, and that is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This is the first McCarthy book I had picked up, and I'm so glad I did. It's an extraordinary book, but a fascinating premise, how the whole of America is just burnt, and there's not many places where it doesn't rain ash, and the handful of survivors have to contend with all sorts of challenges and you know, and weather and starvation and just battling to survive. It's up to a father and son to trek across the country and try and hunt for a better life, and the challenges they face. There's tragedy, you know, they have to contend with the elements and having their things stolen and just trying to find food wherever they can get it. It was so harrowing. The most extraordinary thing about the book that I mentioned in my review video of it, if you haven't caught it on the channel, is how the book was formatted. There is no punctuation or inverted commas for dialogue throughout the book. Some of the words don't have apostrophes, and normally a book like that, I would throw it down in frustration and say, hey, look, format your book, learn to write properly. But it's really funny how a book like that, that you know, doesn't really work for me if it's not edited properly. It actually swung me around 180 degrees, and I ended up not worrying about the format of the book because the story was so great. It was, you know, the characters were really well written. Cormac McCarthy's writing is so engaging that you can't help but immerse yourself. There are no chapters, only scene breaks, so you can get through it pretty quickly. It was a really, really enjoyable read, and it was tragic at the end. But, you know, a lot of people said it is a little bit of a depressive read, and look, to some extent they're right. But I find that there is a little bit of a silver lining towards the end, and there's a glimmer of hope for the remaining survivors to rebuild some sort of society. But certainly a very worthy entry as my book of the month. Loved it. Looking forward to reading The Passenger next, which I've heard really good things about. It also has a sequel, Stella Maris, I think it's called, which was released within a month of The Passenger. So really looking forward to that. So there you go. Coming up next on the channel, my next video is about a really exciting reading project I've got coming up on the channel this year. Not that I need another reading project to pile up my proverbial plate. I've already got the Jack Reacher rereading project, and I've already got the Agatha Christie reading project to keep me busy. I don't need to be kept busier, but this one is going to be a lot of fun, and I'll be sharing that with you in my next video in the next few days. So thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I have included Sean Standfast's channel link in the description below, so by all means please go and check out his channel. He is so knowledgeable and widely read, and he has really, really good advice, but he knows his stuff. He is a real scholar. So until next time, guys, see you later.